Respected Shri Hamid Ansari Shah, respected Dr. Manmohan Singh Ji, Sashitaru Sitaram Yechuri, our panelists, trustees of the Samruddha Bharat Foundation, distinguished guests, friends. I find that I was given an advance copy of a book. I wanted to follow in the footsteps of Sashi and speak generally, but having received an advance copy of a book, I'm afraid I have to either confess that I have not read the book, or I have read the book and I will make certain comments on the book. This is not your ordinary book. You cannot read it when you have nothing else to do. You have to read it when you can devote the time to read it. When you can keep aside all thoughts, all distractions, and pay attention to some of the most fundamental issues raised in the book. Firstly, this volume is one of 14 volumes. It's an ambitious project. It perhaps will take many months or many years, and I'm proud that we will have 150 authors of great distinction contributing to the central idea of rethinking India. The senior editors say, in order to further disseminate these ideas, both to kickstart a national dialogue and further build a consensus on them, we are bringing out this set of 14 volumes highlighting innovative ideas that seek to deepen and further the promise of India. In a sense, we must be unhappy why we have to rethink India after 70 years of the Constitution. I can understand reimagining India, but if we are pushed to rethinking India, it means that someone has struck or is pretty close to striking at the roots of our foundation of this country. I sincerely hope I'm wrong, but if people are ready to strike at the very root, at the very foundation of what we have constructed as the Indian Republic 70 years ago, and have tried to nurture it in the last 70 years, perhaps the publishers, the editors, and the authors felt that the situation is so grave, it is no longer enough to reimagine India, it's no longer enough to remake India, it's no longer enough to rebuild India, it's no longer enough to renew our promise which we made to ourselves 70 years ago, but the time has come to rethink India. Now, what is this new thinking? Some of these essays question ideas that you and I have accepted for long. For example, those of you who have read *Sapiens* know that the sapien who's the human being today is no more than about 7,000 or 8,000 years ago. The author of one essay says, geological research places the formation of the Himalayas 50 million years ago. Genomic research has accepted that the spread of the original population in India was from the peninsula south where Sitaram and I come from and Shashi comes from, to the west and north. Plant genetics has determined that agricultural practices began spreading from Iran to what is now India some 9,000 years before our time. Archaeology takes us back 5,000 years to trace the roots of our civilization. Linguistic and literary history have succeeded in tracking our path back to a period spanning only 4,000 years. History, based as verifiable evidence, has pieced together in India of the last 2,700 years. Shashi adds in his essay something which is obvious but didn't strike me. Christianity arrived on Indian soil with St. Thomas the Apostle, who came to the Kerala coast sometime before 52 Christian era and was welcomed on shore by a flute-playing Jewish girl. He made many converts, so there are Indians today whose ancestors were Christian. Up to that is obvious. The rest is true but not very obvious. Well before any Europeans discovered Christianity. Well before Americans discovered Christianity. So in a sense, India is a Christian nation before Europe became a Christian continent and America became a Christian nation. Thank you for highlighting this point. Now what are we told? They are dragging us back to an age which may or may not have existed. That's why it's called a myth. That's why the stories around it are called mythology. And they're asking us to imagine that we will recreate that age, where our cultural and literary history is only 2,700 years old. It is in this 2700s that we have developed the ideas that make a modern democracy. It doesn't go back beyond 2,700 years. Maybe more archaeological evidence may take it back another 1,000 years, but surely it will not go back more than 4,000 years. In these 3,000 or 4,000 years, the human race has built many institutions, many structures. The most important, I think, is democracy. And we have built those structures by building them on the foundations of some very seminal and fundamental ideas. One of the most fundamental ideas of a modern democracy is secularism. There are several essays which debate what secularism is, what secularization is. I think each one of you should get a copy of the book and spend time reading and understanding it. These are very complex issues that are being debated very profoundly. That secularism is under challenge. That secularism is under challenge to a point where citizenship has become an object of attack and challenge. We've had debates on secularism in the last 20, 30, 40 years. But we have reached a point where the debate on secularism has shifted to a debate on who is a citizen of India. Somehow these two issues have been conflated. If you are secular today, there are people who will call you anti-national. If you are secular today, they will call you are speaking the language of Pakistan. If you're secular, your patriotism is in question. And many of these people will also have their citizenship questioned in course of time. That is the point of danger at which we have seemed to have arrived in the last few years. Now let's turn to citizenship, and I just want to spend a couple of minutes. There's a very interesting essay on how while we all think we are full citizens, not all of us are full citizens. Our citizenship has been diminished by a number of things. For example, the author says, there are a certain number of languages in the schedule to the Constitution. And then he comments, when we look at the plight of communities that do not speak any of the scheduled languages as their mother tongues, and we note that the state has been uninterested in creating access to education for them in their own languages, their linguistic citizenship is compromised. Those who fail to understand the intricacies of law courts automatically become legal non-citizens. Those who have bank accounts or Aadhaar cards of some degree of genuine economic citizen status, those who do not lose out a part of economic citizenship. In the digital world, if the internet is denied to you for 7 months, you are diminished as a digital citizen. But I think these essays open up our minds to various aspects of citizenship and the various nuances of citizenship and how each one could, in one way or other, be a diminished citizen. But if citizenship is taken away from millions of people, the simple political citizenship is taken away from millions of people, how diminished they will become. I think these are serious concerns, and these concerns have been addressed in these essays, and I urge you to read them. Finally, there's one essay which encapsulates the point of view of those who are propagating the Hindu Rashtra and Hindutva. And it says, who is Hindu, which was reiterated and perversely materialized in Golwalkar's We or Nationhood Defined. It's based on 5 specific categories: language, race, religion, territory, and culture. What the founding fathers of India did, I believe they tried to do, Jawaharlal Nehru and Dr. Ambedkar and others, was to build a concept of citizenship that will be based on the Constitution, a constitutional citizenship, rather than a citizenship that is based on language, race, religion, territory, and culture. The essay goes on to argue that each one of these are incomplete ideas, and I won't dwell on them. But what is happening today is there's a reassertion that it's only when you speak a particular language, or you speak one of the languages belonging to that family, or you belong to a race, or you belong to a religion, or you practice a particular culture, you will be an Indian citizen. If this definition is applied, many of us will cease to be Indian citizens. Many of us will become diminished citizens. And a large number may even become non-citizens. So I think we have to understand, as long as this was simply a theoretical idea propagated by Savarkar and Golwalkar, we could debate it and leave the debate with a smile on our face. But when this has become a political project, and these ideas are embodied in a political project, and the state is willing to put its power and resources and authority and might behind taking this political project forward, I think we should seriously worry what will happen to the concept of a constitutional citizenship devised by Dr. Ambedkar, Jawaharlal Nehru, and others. Finally, there's one essay which says why secularism is important. Secularism is an attempt to control politicized religion from taking over the state. Today, politicized religion has almost taken over the state. It has almost taken over all the institutions. Many institutions have been captured by those who subscribe to this politicized religion. If you don't belong to that religion, even if you belong to that religion, but if you don't subscribe to the politicization of that religion, you have no place in many institutions of India today. Finally, an essay argues for constitutional morality. I urge you to read that. The one sentence that I want to leave you with is the contrast between what Gandhiji said and did and what Hitler did. Both were more or less contemporaries. Hitler was about 15 or 20 years younger, but the period overlapped. It says, it was a time when Gandhi came up with his idea of civil disobedience as a statement of one's moral courage in the face of injustice. Civil disobedience as a statement of one's moral courage in the face of injustice. And I'm very proud that people who we thought will not come out of their homes, will not come out to the streets, will not brave the cold and the water cannons and the lathis and even the bullets, are now actually practicing the civil disobedience of Gandhiji. On the contrary, Hitler's view was demanding complete obedience towards the supreme leader. We have examples today in India, in Delhi, of civil disobedience as a statement of one's moral courage against injustice. We have also examples of people demanding complete obedience to the supreme leader. I'll leave that thought with you. Thank you.